Steve Dunn is on the podcast today. This is exciting. This is a good one. I've known Steve for... What do you know? Steve and I have been friends for 5 or 6 years. Who are you, Steve?
I'm Steve Dunn. Do I have to talk into it?
You have... What do you have? Taco Jed.
Taco Jed?
That's what you have now. What is Taco Jed?
It's a taco restaurant here in Rochester.
Who's Jed? What does Jed stand?
Well, Jed is... everybody thinks I'm Jed. First of all, when they come into the restaurant, everybody thinks I'm Jed. And actually, sometimes some of the other employees that are running around, they ask them if they're Jed. But we actually, one thing we thought about marketing sometimes is have you run like billboards, like, who's Jed?
Yeah.
But Jed is I think you said it called an acronym. I could be wrong.
An acronym?
It's major. It's initials of my dad and my grandpa and my great grandpa, which is Joseph Edward Dunn.
Okay.
J-E-D. And we actually never called him Jed, though. I mean, like my dad, we don't call him Jed.
He doesn't have Jed as a nickname.
No, he Jed. Somebody asked me the other day, and I'm like, I bet people sometimes think that we call him Jed, but we don't.
So when you came up with...
a little bit, but not a lot.
When you came up with Jed, was your dad like, who's Jed? What's Jed?
We knew he had the initials, and we talked to my brother. People, but I got a lot of push. Some people didn't like the name Jed, the whole thing. Taco John's, they thought that, didn't like the name and went through a bunch of different names. But I don't know. I just liked it. Yeah. I don't know. The name Jed is kind of.
And there's like a character behind it too, right?
Yeah, we made up. I would call it the image of Jed. I always say is
like a hippie, right?
Well, it's kind of a hippie. He's a nice person. We have motorcycle helmets in there. He likes to ride motorcycle. We used to do a whole bunch of national park stuff. There's some national park stuff in the front. We used to give you a card. Yeah, had national park on. I don't know if you remember that or not. It would.
And that's how you know if your order was done.
It would be how we'd recognize what table you're at or whatever, and so you'd read about Yosemite on it, and then have a little bit of history about how the park was and that sort of stuff. So we still have a bunch of that in the front. The national park stuff, but going back to the Jed stuff was just the name. A lot of people, but I just stuck with it, and then my mom, of course, with the Jed, I always say he's a fictional character made up for marketing purposes. But he's kind of a hippie looking guy, but he's a nice guy. I mean, I've had we have the big flag up in the front too, so. Which you order online, it's 15 by 10. You go, but then it gets there, and you're like, where do we
it's
put
20
this?
feet long.
Where do you put this thing?
Yeah.
So we had it could have went in that back wall where the cat is, or it went in front, and so we put it up in front. And but I have lots of people ask me about the flag and stuff too as well. And I remember one day I had this. He was a veteran was in there, and I was, I always, as I talk to people
and shoot.
I like to find out. I like to find out a lot about people that come in here. That's the great part about it. And one of the great things about Rochester is you get people from all over the world that come here.
Yeah.
And so
then they come to Taco Jed and you get to hear their story.
I had that world at my mom had this great atlas. Keep hitting this thing. The great world atlas that I have. And so I bring that out a lot of times and show us where you're from. And then I've started to have them sign it where they're from. Like they're a lady from Peru that signed it, said she's from here in the ocean and signed it. So that atlas is kind of cool just to see where they're at because, as Americans, our geography is horrible. We don't know the world at all. We just care about the U.S.
Right. We don't know what's going on around. Right. And it is cool to say that. Like even the times I've been in there and you're talking with other people are coming from all over the world and they come to this Taco Jed. Yeah. And Jed is...
If they can get out of downtown.
Right. And it's got this whole... Jed has its own, like you said, decor and personality. And then these people are, of course, interested in it. And then you get to hear their whole story and where they came from.
Yeah, so that's a great part of it. But so back to so there's veterans, I'm shooting the breeze with this guy. And he's like, so are you a vet? And I'm standing there. I'm like, no, I'm not a vet. But Jed is. So, Jed's great because Jed can be anything.
Make a personality out of him.
Anything you want. I mean, and Brent McMahon, who is a good friend of mine, but also he used to be brother-in-law before a divorce took place with Rusty Fenton. Okay. My former partner. So, and he designed the Rusty Tacos, and so he designed that, and that's where you get a lot of the stuff in the restaurant that's designed from Brent. McMahon, his name is. Who's just a great design artist and awesome person.
Yeah.
But we have the Tacos Unite people and
Right.
travel the world and see, and
yeah, just the whole decor branding around
be
it
kind,
is
be
Jen.
kind, eat tacos, things like that.
You ever been to Mexico?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I say is, I'm not. We're a Mexican restaurant, kind of. We're kind of a gourmet taco. We're not like regular Mexican, Mexican tacos, if you will.
Yeah.
I've had people call them artesian tacos or gourmet tacos because they're a little twist on them, and part of that came from the Rusty Taco, and then also from. You're not even asking me questions.
Let's know. I want to dive into that. I want to dive into
that was Leo Anderson, who has Tongue in Cheek restaurant up in St. Paul, who's from North Dakota, a friend of mine from North Dakota. And he's a great chef, and he came with it, and we'll talk about the tacos. And
let's stop.
The flower child, only got to talk about.
I want to talk about, so you mentioned Rusty Fenton and Rusty Taco, because that's where, let's go way back, because I know the story a little bit. Obviously, we've talked about it, but I think that's a really interesting part about your story is how you built that up and how that's led you to where you are. So go back to, like, what was that? You're in Texas or what?
Well, yeah, I mean, I did 100. I've done a bunch of them, so.
But the taco, the first taco thing.
I sold copiers. I was an insurance guy. My dad was in insurance, so I wanted to get back. Became a insurance agent in Sioux City, Iowa. Moved back from I lived out in California for a while.
You were in real estate?
It was so cold. It was freezing. Well, then that happened because I got promoted.
Yeah.
Into management, and I moved from. Well, I was in Sioux City, then I was in Storm Lake, Iowa, then I was in Omaha, Nebraska, and was in management there for State Farm Insurance for a number of years, and then I was getting promoted to Green Bay, Wisconsin. And I'm a diehard Vikings fan, for one.
Yeah.
So I spent about 90 days commuting back and forth to Green Bay during that time. But it was one of those years where the Packers didn't make the playoffs, for one, and it was cold and brutal. And I don't know if you've ever been to Green Bay. It's a blue-collar town. I mean, you got the football players with all this tons of money, and then you've got working class people that work in
that's
the
everyone
shipyard,
else.
It's a real working class. And there are lots of bars and fish fries and stuff like that going on up there. Wisconsin's a fun place to live. Mm-hmm. And so I was going up there. I was ice skating, but I was commuting back and forth. But my ex-wife and my wife at the time, went up there and looked for houses, and it was a brutal time of the year up there, and she didn't want to move up there. And so I ended up changing. That's how I got into real estate, commercial real estate. And then through the commercial real estate stuff, we were developing shopping centers, and we did a large one down in Kansas City in Overland Park.
Okay.
With my friend Jeff Johnson, in our company called Cormac, which was more of we used to do more like Target, Walmart kind of sites and develop them.
Big retail.
Well, and then strip them
power
out,
centers.
And then we'd flip them. We'd sell them mostly we sold it to Inland.
Yeah,
out of
it's huge.
Yeah, who's the largest REIT in the country.
Yep.
Because they have to use a lot of their money all the time. They have to spend it through tax situations.
So would you get like Target and stuff, or they were there and then you'd
we've
build
done a bunch of Target.
So you'd get them and then build everything around them and sell.
I think we had 7 states.
Yeah,
we were doing projects in. We had our own plane that we were flying around in. It was a fun time. And then we did this kind of went out of the box and did this project. Cormac in Jeff's family, who's actually goes back, his grandfather started Payless Cashways. That's how they got in, and they knew real estate because of that. His father Jerry, and that, and so then Jeff and Dave, his brother, and Jody. But we did this project down in Kansas City, and it was more of a regional mall play. But we were going to do one of these things that, as you know, in the real estate business, they call a lifestyle center. Mm-hmm. Work, live, and play, right?
Yep.
So it's a mall basically without a roof on it.
Yep.
And it was kind of new. Kansas City's kind of a mid-market where the weather can be iffy a little bit down there. I mean, they'll get some snow once in a while, but it gets hot. So having it without open air was a little different and things. Anyway, we were going along. Von Maur moved down there. We had Barnes and Noble. It's developed now. It's called Corbin Park. It's down at 120th and Metcalf, I think is what it is. In Overland Park, which is the new money in Kansas City, as they call it.
Down it's
there.
like the hopping.
All the yuppies down, money down there.
Yep.
If you still use that term, I don't know.
Yeah, they do. They still,
they are.
Yeah, Gen Xers.
Yeah, I guess that
Gen Xers.
I don't really know that, but
that's maybe that's what I am. I
think I'm Gen X. I think
I'm Gen Z, maybe.
I don't know. We're Gen something, but anyway, Jeff and I decided talking and through whatever talked about bringing back this concept into the restaurant, kind of a marquee restaurant there to help with the development. And
so you were talking about bringing in your own concept into
yes,
one of the spaces.
Yes. Well, we end up. There's a concept called Trader Vic's. This is kind of going real deep on this, but Trader Vic's. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but Trader Vic's is an old school. It's a tiki restaurant, really.
Okay.
Started in Palo Alto, like in the 40s and 50s, by this German guy who became known as Trader Vic. Out of a restaurant, they would, ironically, I'm wearing Jerry Garcia's shirt today. The Grateful Dead started in Palo Alto.
Okay.
But it was a Chinese, as a bar. Him and his wife started cooking meat in this Chinese cooker, and then became popular, and he expanded and grew. Anyway, do these restaurants all over the world, and Hilton hotels in major markets, in the United States first, and then it went overseas, London, Berlin, Tokyo, all these major markets. In fact, a lot of people get Trader Vic's confused with Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
Trader Vic invented the Mai Tai, so it was like going in. He wanted people to get the feeling that they left their crappy lives, I guess is what he kind of said, when we're able during the war, in the 40s and stuff, and be able to go into this restaurant and feel like you're in the South Pacific. So it's like a tiki. It's like going to Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, Hawaiian.
Yeah, all of that and the Hawaiian stuff. In fact, anyway. So they started a franchise. They'd left a lot of the markets, like they were in Kansas City, and they left Kansas City over time. It closed.
Yep.
But they were in all over. I mean, the Rat Pack used to go in Beverly Hills to Trader Vic's. Nixon would go to.
Yeah.
Would go to.
They were everywhere.
DC.
Yeah.
There was and anyway, so we bought this franchise. They started to franchise domestically, and we went. We purchased this franchise for our center, and I was gonna develop and run it.
Yep.
And the Trader Vic's people said, you got to meet this guy down in Dallas who's really done a great job with us. He's helped us on our franchising, who's run it in Dallas, and his name is Rusty Fenton. And so Rusty and I flew down there with Trader Vic's and met Rusty, and him and I had an immediate friendship and bond and stuff. And I hired him to be a consultant for the restaurant build that we were doing and things, and so made other trips back and forth. And
so you hired him to help with the one in Kansas City that you're going to do?
Yep, he's a consultant. But then, and so we went down and saw his restaurant. He had reopened Dallas with a franchise group down there.
Trader Vic's.
Trader Vic's, yep. It was still, he was a little advanced because the Trader Vic's had closed. It was still all there. It was in this place. They never leased it up again. Yeah. So they went in and redid it and reopened it. So they had a little easier time.
So he was actually doing that concept at the time when you met him.
Exactly. But he'd been Rusty was a restaurateur forever. Okay. So during that time, Rusty and I started talking about other concepts in our center that we could run as a restaurant group, because if you have a fundamental place here, we could run a burger joint, and we could run a pizza shop, and we could have management that could control it all and run it inside our own and start our own concepts. Yeah. And one of those was a taco joint we talked about. Yep. So anyway, then 2008 hit, and I the numbers wrong, but I mean, our center was appraised for this huge number. We actually, the ground we bought in Kansas City too was bought from, I don't know if you ever heard of AJ Spanos. Signed up this, and then 2008 hit. We're going to build this. We're in the process of building this development. We did I don't know, it was $120 million construction loan in the fall. Yep. 2008, I think it was, and then by 2009, Shearson Lehman collapsed, and Obama just became president, and everything was just, that was crazy all time. Happening. The recession hit. Yeah. Right. And so commercial real estate was in shambles. Mm-hmm. So all the retailers weren't expanding. So we're trying to build a center. Yeah, at the worst time. All the tenants are backing up. Yeah. So it ended up causing this project to go upside down, and then eventually the collapse of that company for the most part. And then so I was like, what am I going to do now? Yep. And so I end up actually. But you were still friends with Rusty. I was still friends with Rusty. Rusty and I, maintained friendship. And so I actually started wholesaling mutual funds. I'm also a CFP. I'm certified financial planner, and just been a little bit of everything. Yeah, and I still have it. I kept it because it's such a pain in the to get in the butt. We don't want to use bad language on these things, but but it's a tedious test, just to say, to get it. And so I got this my CFP at the time when I was working with insurance and stuff, and we kept it. Anyway, I went to work with a buddy of mine out of Minot, North Dakota, named Shannon Radke. He has a a thing called Viking Integrity Funds, Integrity Viking Funds, excuse me. And they had mutual funds and things, but they started an oil fund out of the Bakken, which was big at that time as fracking was coming out.
Yep.
Anyway, I started wholesaling mutual funds, got my licensing, and started traveling around Iowa. Basically, I had Iowa, and oil was booming. The oil prices were up, and the Bakken was hot, and ended up having the #1 fund in the country at the time. And,
wow.
And I've traveled all over and sold the heck out of it and was doing fine. And then I got a call from Rusty one day, and he said, "Hey, I got this site down in Dallas, and as you know, real estate's very important.
Yeah.
Very important in
what was it? I think you've told me. Wasn't it like
a gas station?
Yeah,
it was a gas
old
station.
gas station.
It was a gas station that originally became a Brakes Plus. So it was near SMU. It was on the 75 or the Central Expressway, they call it in Dallas.
Yep.
It runs kind of out towards Plano and all the northern suburbs of Dallas. But it's right across the freeway was SMU.
But it was an old closed down gas station
It
at
was
the
an
time.
old closed down gas station, and then
so it was vacant.
Vacant. Well, it was going vacant. And they were relocating because it was small and it was old. It was, the old kind that, the window had the bathrooms you had the key for to go outside to get. But it had been there for a long time, but it was on University in Greenville, and it was just a great location. And I went down and looked at it. I went, let's do this. And we basically got into this lease as quick as we could because I knew the location was phenomenal. I looked at the demos. I've never seen another site ever since I did restaurants.
That was that good.
That was that good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because on the other side of the freeway, they had, I can't forget the name of the town, the city there. But anyway, it's where Jerry Jones lives, Troy Aikman, all these mansions, multi-millionaires live on that side.
Addison
by SMU.
Okay.
I can't believe I can't remember the name of it. I'll think of it. But anyway, and then on the other side, we had 40,000 apartment units within 5 miles. You know, see all these people there. So it was a great location. And Rusty called me up and said, "Hey, I think I can get control of this site." And I went down and I said, "All right, let's do it." And so Rusty didn't have any funding. He was not a rich man. And so I came in and started a group called Folks Gotta Eat. It was actually a term Rusty came up with.
Okay. And
I did a private equity fund where I went to friends of mine during a recession and said, "Hey, look, because, and probably rightly, my ex-wife didn't want me to put all of our money into this, a lot of money into this thing, put all our eggs in one basket." So, we obviously I was the largest shareholder in it. And then I actually gave Rusty that he was supposed to pay me back. Long story, I won't go into that, but I basically funded the whole thing for Rusty. And then I had this other group of Folks Gotta Eat that was in there that helped fund it. So I'd go to like you, for example, if we were doing it today, and I'd say, "Hey, I'm gonna do this taco
invest
joint.
$50, 50 grand,
50 grand, 25. They're in 25,000 acres." I said, "Look, this is a risk. It's a high risk thing. If it goes bad, I don't want your kid not to go to college." These are people that had enough money,
that they could do it. They qualified.
Several people in Omaha that are actually. That did it. That were,
So you raise money, go to Rusty.
Open thing
called Rusty Taco.
Well, Rusty wanted to name it Taco Stand. Actually, Taco Stand. He'd been down he had eaten tacos in Mexico. That's how he kind of fell in love with these tacos. And it was a taco stand. He wanted to name it Taco Stand, and I was just like, that name sucks. His daughter had drawn a.
You're like, let me help with this, Rusty.
So what happened is this Julie Kluger name that worked with us at Cormac at the time as I was transitioning out of Cormac still as this was going on. As that was starting to fall apart. I was having kind of a brainstorming thing, and she was a marketing gal, and she one day says, "What about Rusty Taco?" And I'm like, "That's it." I called Rusty and I said, "Hey, I'm changing the name."
So was it already open? Called Taco? Okay.
No, this is
but
before.
It was, you were through the business plan and
So that's how it became Rusty Taco. I said, "Look, you don't have a vote in this. My money.
We're doing Rusty Taco.
It's going to be called Rusty Taco."
Okay. So then,
which is his own name. So then we're going to open it. We got it construction to this gas to convert it, which is a huge project to do. Dallas is, you can imagine the things that. But I was just the outside guy. That's what people think. They come into Taco Jed, think I'm a big. Oh, you came up with all these recipes.
Well, you're Taco Jed.
Yeah, but I'm not. But I didn't. I never thought I'd ever be in the taco business.
So you get Rusty Taco up and running.
Well, we're gonna. But I got to tell you this. So I have great luck as we go through this story. My luck is not